I can't seem to face up to the facts. I'm tense and nervous and I can't relax. I can't sleep cause my bed's on fire. Don't touch me, I'm a real live wire. Psycho killer, qu'est-ce que c'est? Better.
So this was supposed to be our spoiler-free review of that Vin Diesel comic book thing about nanites or whatever, but it's not because I blinked and all the movie theaters in the world closed. It's like the worst seasons of The Walking Dead out there right now, and if you're anything like me, you're trapped in your f***ing house for fear of potentially spreading a virulent plague to every person who suffers the misfortune of crossing your path. Now, don't worry about us.
Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Truth be told, I don't even know if we're sick or not, but we're not taking any chances because we aren't monsters. So we've been sitting right here for 2 weeks now. Now, I love our place, and why wouldn't I? I've got all my books, music, my Blu-rays.
Got your pint? Got your pig snacks? What more do you want?
So whenever the CDC announced the best way to do your part to combat coronavirus was to stop interacting with people and stay indoors until it's all over, I knew I had been called. This was my moment. Sit still, watch TV, day drink, and eat everything.
It's like, I was made for this.
My co-writer and fiance, on the other hand, she's an extrovert and the outdoors type. She loves hiking and camping and cycling, and she's got all these awesome friends whom she really misses. The only other person she's seen in the past 14 days is me. And I mean, I'm a fun guy and all, but I'm not being the littlest bit hyperbolic when I say she's currently right about here.
I'm sorry, I'm nitpicking, but like you're breathing on me pretty hard right now.
Okay.
And about 3.5 hours away from here.
I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in. I'm gonna bash them right the fuck in.
So between all the hand washing and not face touching, we've been watching a lot of movies, which isn't out of the ordinary like at all, but since none of us is going anywhere anytime soon, I thought I'd share our musings on everything Nicole and I have watched over the last week and change. If you had told me you wanted to release a musical drama the same year Amadeus came out, I'd have told you don't even try it, because yours would have been dead on arrival. But that wasn't the case with Purple Rain, the first film we watched while we were on lockdown, because it killed. Led by a performance from Prince himself that kinda defies categorization, it's a clunkier movie than you probably remember. The acting isn't exactly what I would call good, and the dialogue is frequently at its worst bad and at its best bizarre.
Well, for starters, you have to purify yourself in the waters of Lake Minnetonka.
In this quasi-semi-autobiographical tale, Prince plays the Kid, a talented yet troubled singer, songwriter, and musician who is kinda like the Anakin Skywalker of low-rent Minneapolis nightclub triple threats. With more talent in his little finger than most everyone around him has in their entire bodies, save of course for longtime rival and sometime sexual predator Morris Day and his group The Time, the Kid dukes it out nightly to hold on to his slot at the First Avenue Club, all while the mounting pressures of an abusive and unstable home life and the need to draw ever greater crowds threaten to crush him. He's got the gift, but how should I put this?
His abilities have made him, well, arrogant.
He won't listen to anyone. He doesn't respect the contributions of bandmates Wendy and Lisa, and he treats his would-be girlfriend Apollonia horribly for much of the movie's runtime. It's messy throughout, at nearly all times flagrantly brandishing the kinds of narrative decisions commonly capable of capsizing other films of this nature. But that never happens because Purple Rain is like Teflon. You can criticize it all you want, but nothing sticks to it. Odd and off-kilter though it may be, and believe me, it be both, you'd be hard-pressed to divine another movie that better and more completely ensnares a single moment in film and music history. And that soundtrack is just one bona fide banger after another. It slays still. It goes hard in a way nothing ever did. Purple Rain is like nothing else because it could only have happened precisely when it did. It was like the universe willed it so. You release that movie today and you got nothing. 10 years earlier and it'd have been like it never happened. It was fire and lightning, and like Prince himself, it is immortal. The second movie we watched wasn't nearly as memorable.
Movie. Okay, movie. 2, 3, 4, 5 words. Doesn't matter.
Diving into the black abyss that is Netflix because no way was I paying $20 for the privilege of streaming Bloodshot, we stumbled upon Eli, a collection of jump scares masquerading as a 2019 horror film about a boy afflicted with an enigmatic illness that forces him to live in a bubble, whose dubious parents take him to a doctor of sorts who claims she can cure him with cutting-edge experimental science, or possibly witchcraft, or both, or neither. Look, it doesn't matter. I'm not knocking it, not really. The film is often effective and comes within a respectable distance of actually pulling it all off. It's like a well-planned heist where you manage to steal the money only to get caught in Aruba a week later.
He came, he grabbed, they conquered.
The Conjuring's Lily Taylor doles out the Wiggins as a woman who looks like she probably plays bridge with Dolores Umbridge and Nurse Ratched, and Sadie Sink of Stranger Things shows up sometimes. Honestly, it's neither a bad-looking movie nor an especially uninteresting one. We were pretty invested right from the off. It's odd and sometimes confused, often feeling like a cure for wellness as told by R.L. Stine, but it mostly works. It's very creepy, and since everyone has a motive, you're never quite sure who to believe. Is the joint haunted, or is Eli's medication making him hallucinate? Are his parents trustworthy? Is Lily Taylor even a doctor, or is she just some lady who owns a mansion and a lab coat? Who do you believe when everyone is unreliable? How do you find the ground if every direction is up? The sets are cool, Bear McCreary does his thing, it's got plenty of scares even if they do often fall on the more pedestrian side of the fright aisle, and I have to give it credit. Jump scares or not, Eli swings for the fences when the third act comes, exhibiting no concern whatsoever for whether or not you're buying what it's selling. The ending may be bonkers, but if you say you saw it coming, I'll call you a liar right to your face because you'll never convince me they didn't just think that shit up the morning they shot it. There is not one shred of evidence planted anywhere in the film to support its conclusion. Worth a watch if you like creepy kids, ghosts, and noise. Next. The Mask of Zorro we watched because Patrick Willems put out a video on it a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was so well made I decided to rewatch it because, to my best recollection, I didn't like it all that much when it first came out back in 1998. Well, apparently all I needed was 22 years away from it to clear my head because upon second viewing, it's kinda great. You know the story. Zorro, the eponymous masked swordsman, is a vigilante who protects the innocent from the tyrannical grip of, well, basically whoever happens to have the most tyrannical grip that week. It's all a lot of frankly astonishing action, romance, and daring do. You couldn't shake a stick at Martin Campbell after he came off of GoldenEye, and he was in rare form for this one. First of all, can I just say Desperado's Antonio Banderas was the best choice for this? He's basically the Spanish Batman, or rather Batman is the pasty Zorro.
El Mariachi. I like that one.
That one is culturally insensitive.
I mean, he's got all the same gimmicks. A cave accessible by secret passages beneath his mansion, a black costume, mask, and cape. He's a master of combat and acrobatics, and most of all, he presents the world with a foppish, fictitious secret identity that is the polar opposite of the real man beneath. The hero and legend beloved by good and feared by evil. Beyond all of that, this version contains a ton of tropes I just go bibbledy for. Anthony Hopkins plays Don Diego de la Vega, the original Zorro, whose wife is killed by arch-nemesis Montero when he learns his secret. He abducts and raises his daughter, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones, never letting her learn the truth that her real father has been imprisoned unjustly for 20 years. At the same time, Banderas plays Alejandro Murrieta, a thief who comes to be mentored by de la Vega in the ways of the masked crusader. Added to that, Alejandro's brother was murdered by Montero's right hand, the cold-blooded Captain Love, which sets two revenge plots in motion. This movie kinda has it all. The stunts are all practical, they're flamboyant and over the top in the best way, and the sword work is brought to you by none other than the venerable Bob Anderson, the Olympic fencer and choreographer who had a hand in pretty much every awesome sword fight you've ever seen. And Mask of Zorro is no slouch, no weak entry in the Swordmaster's oeuvre. The fights are stunning. You'll leave the theater with your buckling thoroughly swashed. It's an all-around great time, and looking back at it now, it's a damn shame it never got the sequel it deserved because I would have watched those forever. Switching gears momentarily, The Platform is a 2019 Spanish science fiction horror film about life inside a vertical prison with a single 2-inmate cell on each floor. There are no doors or windows, only an opening in the floor lets you see the prisoners above you and below. And every day, once a day, a platform lowers into each cell from above. Upon it is, in theory, enough Michelin star food to feed every prisoner in the entire structure, which is well over 100 floors tall. The problem is, as with most things,
people, man. People.
The people on the upper floors take too much, leaving less and less for each level beneath them until there's nothing for those on the lowest floors. And if you haven't yet picked up on the socio-political and economic metaphor that is the film's central but not single thematic conceit, there's really not much I can tell you.
That's a metaphor!
Some have already given it a measure of grief for its lack of subtlety, but you know what? I'm quarantined in my own house right now, so maybe subtlety can stay inside for a couple weeks too. My point is, it's a strong movie chock full of some very disturbing imagery that asked hard questions about our society as a whole. If you enjoyed Snowpiercer and or Cube, The Platform is basically its hideous baby. The fifth movie we gambled on and immediately regretted was a 2019 not-quite haunted house indie called Girl on the Third Floor. Directed by well-known horror producer Travis Stevens in his theatrical debut and starring Phil Brooks, whom you most likely know as CM Punk of former WWE fame, Third Floor follows the tribulations of Don Koch, a slimy ex-lawyer and all-around garbage human who sets his sights on single-handedly renovating a creepy old house in an attempt to prove to his pregnant wife Liz, probably for the umpteenth time, that despite his innumerable moral failings, he's learned his lessons, really has changed, and is definitely worth not giving up on.
I don't believe that.
The house has a sordid history everyone in town but the people who sank their non-refundable life savings into it knows, because of course it does, and Don barely gets a nail in the wall before the place starts screwing with him. They really could have called this thing The House That Hates Men, but that's probably too on the nose. It gets gross fast, both Dawn and the house, which perpetually oozes a litany of distinctly human fluids from its every orifice, to the extent that it becomes very much alive, furious that another wretched man has strayed into its walls. Don is no picnic himself. It's really just 90 minutes of him slowly peeling back his "I'm all better now" facade to reveal that, much like the house itself, no fresh coat of paint can fix what's rotten underneath.
That's a metaphor.
Third Floor has plenty on its mind when it comes to toxic masculinity, which makes for engaging viewing as it explores and dissects patriarchal ideas and structures over the course of its runtime. But the problem with it is once you've got all that, the movie just kinda keeps going, ultimately ending up in a place that doesn't quite make narrative or thematic sense. It's also impossible to dismiss an underlying misogyny that's kind of always there, which is a shame given the story it clearly wants to tell. The worst part is, it's the kind of mistake that probably could have been avoided altogether had even one of the 3 screenwriters responsible for the movie been a woman. It's not bad, but it does try to be so many things that it kind of fails to be any one thing. There are some solid practical effects in there and a monster design that's on screen just long enough to properly freak you out, but I'm not exactly jonesing to see it a second time. It was all meant to be, like, erotic or something, but I regret to inform you it never was. Maybe if John Cena had been in it.
My safe word is keep going.
I don't need one.
You will.
So we took a turn on day 5 or 6 or 11 and decided to round out our viewing with a couple features of the based on actual events variety. The first being Dark Waters, the 2019 Mark Ruffalo-led dramatization of real-life corporate defense lawyer Robert Billet, who courageously sued the nefarious DuPont Chemical Company for its largely unregulated, decades-long Legion of Doom caliber supervillainy that continues to threaten the lives of every living thing on Earth, and I mean that. I won't spoil for you here the incalculable heinous acts of human suffering Billet discovers DuPont to have facilitated, both indirectly and intentionally. You just have to see it.
I can't wait.
Dark Waters comes to us from Todd Haynes, the director behind the inventive 2007 Bob Dylan drama I'm Not There and the calculatedly subtle Carol, a stellar Cate Blanchett-led 2015 adaptation of Patricia Highsmith's novel The Price of Salt. And it's a fine movie, Dark Waters. It checks the necessary boxes in the proper order, making certain to hit all the expository and emotional beats one comes to expect from this type of narrative along the way, to its detriment. It's good, but it's formulaic, like to the point where you kind of always know what has to happen next since you've already seen it all before someplace else. You could sell it in a DVD 2-pack alongside Aaron Brockovich, have yourself a nice, heartwarming corporate greed double feature. The movie is well made, absolutely worth seeing, and it has star power to burn, what with ample screen time going to the likes of Tim Robbins, Anne Hathaway, Bill Camp, and Victor Garber. Bill Pullman's even in there, sporting a southern drawl that is unacceptable.
Sounds like a party. We'll be there!
But what's lacking is, I don't know, breath. It never quite feels alive to me. It's the kind of subject that could have benefited from a miniseries treatment, maybe even by a script pass from Craig Mazin, who already showcased his talent for turning cold, autopsy-esque procedural fare into the very highest form of drama.
Not great, not terrible.
The 7th and final film we watched during our first week in quarantine was North Country, a fictionalized 2005 account of the events of Jensen versus Evelyn Mines, the first major successful sexual harassment case in U.S. history. Capably helmed by Nikki Caro, the director behind 2002's empowering family drama Whale Rider, North Country follows then newly minted Oscar and Golden Globe winner Charlize Theron's Josie Ames, a single mother of two fresh from an abusive marriage who, alongside a handful of other female employees at the local iron mine, endures an endless onslaught of verbal and physical abuse at the hands of her male co-workers. Like Dark Waters, the performances are solid and convincing, but the material runs to the formulaic, a weakness made worse by the comically sinister buffoonery of her harassers. And that's not me making light of sexual harassment. Those assholes absolutely exist, and they need to be fired one and all, from the Schwerer Gustav into the Sun 2 and 3 at a time until there are none left. But these guys are so black hat, hunched back, damsel tied to the railroad tracks evil, any hope of ever being able to see them as people and not caricatures is just run full tilt into the dirt. The film is black and white to a fault, which is both a disservice and an injustice to anyone who has ever been forced to contend with actual sexual harassment, on the job or otherwise. And to say that the film has a tenuous understanding of the law and how courtrooms and trials work is an understatement. I got to the end of this thing and it felt like I was rewatching Tyler Perry's A Fall from Grace, and if you haven't seen that yet, oh my god, do it. But back to North Country. It's not all bad. It's truthfully not even mostly bad. Theron goes hard. She has great scenes with Richard Jenkins, who plays her father Hank, also a miner with dangerously archaic views on what jobs are fit for men and which ones are meant for women, which places a terrible strain on an already fractious relationship. Frances McDormand as Glory, the mine's only female union rep, is of course excellent, and Jeremy Renner gives it his all as the disgusting Bobby Sharp. Woody Harrelson's in there as Bill White, a former hockey all-star / lawyer and one of only two men in the film who aren't walking sewage. The other is Sean Bean, whose American accent is admittedly not great. I confess I spent an embarrassing amount of the movie's runtime waiting for him to die because, well... There was a better movie in there, I know it, but the filmmakers couldn't locate it, and instead left us with this wrecking ball hell-bent on annihilating any nuance it could find until it became impossible to celebrate come time for its inevitable and scripted conclusion. Strong performances, weak script, questionable intent. Not a great way to end a week of quarantine, and as of my recording this, our governor has just issued a statewide month-long shelter-in-place order, edict, mandate, thing. So from the look of it, you can probably expect another one of these in a couple weeks, as we're apparently not leaving anytime soon. Or not, who knows. Alright, I've been in this room for too long. I'm going to be in another room for a while. See you guys next time. Hey everyone, thanks for hanging out with us today. If you enjoyed the episode, hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and give us a like. Ring that bell so you never miss an update, and follow Tangent1985 on Twitter for more. I'm M. Glenn Gore, and I'll see you next time.
It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. It's the end of the world as we know it. And I feel fine.
I just wanna be pure.